Des Moines, and all of Central Iowa, welcome to Maxworld Live. Maxworld is your world. Every day we talk about the issues and topics that matter most to you. And as always, it's your voice we want to hear in Maxworld. So join the conversation by calling 515-244-0077. And now, here's the host of Maxworld Live, J. Michael McCoy.
All right, good afternoon. 6 minutes after the hour of 3 o'clock on this, the 7th day of December in the Lord's year 2015. I believe today is a date that will go down
in infamy.
Yeah, isn't this Pearl Harbor Day?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. Well, thank you for every man and woman who ever served in our military. I know that if you served at Pearl Harbor, you're probably not around. There's a few of us left. Us, not us, but there's a few people left. But if you're in Afghanistan right now and you're fighting the battles, man, if you're on the ground in Iraq and you're fighting the battles, just understand that this day goes down in infamy also. This is as important as that day, because today you're keeping us safe. And I know we've got people who listen all around the world, and I'm so thankful to have your voice in this radio show every single day. You are very, very important to us, and you are in our prayers. So as we look back 50, 60 years, whatever it was, to Pearl Harbor Day, I want you to know that you are on the top of my mind today as you're out there fighting and searching and protecting us. All right. Glad to be back on the show. I have been gone for several weeks intermittently. As you can hear, I think God is finally calmed me down and sat me down and told me, Mac, shut up. Sit down, Mac. I'll do this. Mac, just shut up, Mac. Just sit down and do this. And I was completely quiet. Well, that's not true. Completely quiet's an oxymoron for me, isn't it? I was really quiet after the show on Wednesday night, and then Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I didn't even sing out loud in church. And so you can see the Lord is healing my voice, and I'm very thankful for that. This may be the new normal for a while, and I apologize if it's a little uncomfortable listening to my voice, because you're used to it being a certain way. You've listened for 30, 40 years, so however long I've had the pleasure of you listening. But right now, I'm giddy. If you could see on the webcast, I'm giddy because this is the first time I have not had to break for a cough or anything like that. And so I am going back to my nose, throat, and ear guy, Dr. Reinhardt, tomorrow morning. And we're going to talk about some more ways to get my voice back to where it should be. But maybe this is how God wants me to sound now. I'm perfectly fine. But I do thank, first of all, you guys and Rebecca and Chris, holy Toledo, talking about you're not even a backup team. You're just the other side of the front line. You guys were great last week. I mean, Rebecca was wonderful. And Frank, your knowledge of the McRib totally impressed me. Totally impressed me. All right, we have a very special guest on the radio with us today. And this is only the second time he's ever done a radio interview. So we're going to take it, well, we're not going to take it easy on him, but I understand this is a brand new thing. This is like, riding a bicycle for the first time or second time without training wheels. We have BJ Carson. Now, BJ, what does BJ stand for? That's Ben Jr.?
Yes, that is correct.
So I take it you're the oldest.
I'm actually not. I'm the middle child. My older brother is named Murray. He was born in Australia, so he got an Australian name. I was the first one born in the States, so I got the junior.
Is Murray jealous because you're not junior? Or he's not junior?
Brought up a couple things from time to time. But
All right, so we have, and let me tell you something. I got to tell you, this is cool. I remember interviewing one of Mitt's kids. And the insight that we got into Mitt Romney, now this is 8 years ago, was, and Ann was on also, the genuineness of getting to understand a candidate through the eyes of a child, a sibling, a spouse. Thank you very much for honoring us with this. And I'll do everything I can not to ask a stupid question. If I do, throw something at Frank. And when he says, ouch, I'll know. No, but seriously, BJ, seriously, though, if I ask something that's none of my business or none of my listeners' business, would you just say I'd rather not answer that? And I won't screw around with you and try to come in the back door or anything like that. Okay?
Sure. Whatever works. And thank you so much for having me.
Oh, this is our pleasure. This is all our pleasure. All right. Here's my first question. What disciple or character in the Bible is your dad most like?
So I think you might get a different answer from me than from my dad. My dad would probably say Solomon because that's his idol, and it's also his middle name.
Okay. Wow, I didn't know that.
Reads from the book of Proverbs every morning. That is, his favorite book of the Bible. If you asked me, I'd probably have to think about that for a little bit. There's a lot of interesting characters in the Bible.
Think about that, and maybe at the end of the show, I'll ask you again.
Sure.
So, all right, now the other question. Well, go ahead, Frank.
What disciple are you most like?
I don't think I would have made the cut. To be perfectly honest.
Oh, yeah, you would have. But okay. Remind me to share with you, and I'm going to put it on Facebook, too. It's funny you should bring this up. It's a review as a business consultant is reviewing all these candidates for a job, and he goes through and he picks apart every disciple, and the only one he feels is qualified for the job is Judas.
Really?
Yeah, I'll show it to you. Wow. I just made a copy of that today. It's funny you should bring that up. All right, so your dad is literally a brain surgeon.
Yes.
How do you explain? Act like I'm 6. Do you have a nephew or niece or anything?
I don't. I have a 3.5-year-old daughter.
Okay, so your 3.5-year-old daughter is now 6. She's at the point where she's beginning to understand words and sentences and ideas. How do you explain to, what's her name? Tesora. How do you explain to Tesora what a brain surgeon is?
That's a good question. I think the easiest way to break it down is it's someone who's very intelligent, because you have to be very intelligent to work on such complex issues as those you find in the brain, but also very compassionate, especially in pediatric neurosurgery. One thing that my dad has always said, which I always thought was rather amusing, he went into pediatrics for neurosurgery because the work they do is obviously very complex. There can be complications down the road. And he said if he's going to do all this work on someone, he wants to see the benefit of that for years and years to come.
Oh, cool.
So he decided to work on kids rather than what he always said, which is probably politically incorrect, but he'd always say old fogies who will die of something else in 6 months.
Geriatrics. All right, now, I want you to be critical of this comment if you want to be. I don't know anything about brain surgery. I also don't know anything about building a house. But if I was going to build a complex house, let's say a $500,000 house, I've got plumbing, I've got water, I've got electricity, I've got foundations, I've got all this stuff. To a 6-year-old, isn't that the same? Brain surgery and building something from scratch?
I think there's a lot of complexities with most things out there, and it takes time and I think attention to detail and a lot of discipline to really become an expert in your field. And that's going to be brain surgery or construction or anything else out there. So I think there's, a lot that goes into almost any discipline that you decide to devote your life to.
Yeah, you're either passionate about it and you can't get enough, or, and Frank and I talk about this a lot, people who think they've arrived.
Yes.
If you think you've arrived, you've undersold. Mm-hmm. You'll never outkick your field goal space.
Yes, I would agree. And being a lifelong student, I think, is something else that's really important towards becoming top of your field.
Yeah.
As soon as you think I think that's a very valid point. As soon as you think you're arrived, you're no longer learning.
Yeah, that's right.
And learning has to be core if you're going to be top of your field.
Yeah, and I got to give credit to an old business partner of mine, Dr. Bob Fuller, who always said that. He said, you never arrive, you never arrive, you never arrive. Because me and my ego, I think I arrive a couple times a day, right? But the bottom line is, we don't. Now, Bob Montserrat, who you just met, he's the cat in the hat watching the chat. He is also a scientist. He spent 35 years with the state in their DCI and their CSI labs.
Oh, wow.
So it's interesting to have Bob here sometimes to explain how some of that works. But you're not a brain surgeon, right?
No, but you have to consider he's working on children or children even in the womb. So everything that he's touching is very much smaller than adult size. You know what I'm saying? So it's even more difficult as of the brain surgeons. He's probably one that has the most difficult job of your normal brain surgeons, if you want to consider that.
Yeah, of all the brain surgeons in the world, he's got the most difficult job.
Exactly, because of everything is minute.
Yeah.
Right?
Now, that job that he has, patience would be a virtue. Was your dad a patient man at home as a father?
So I'm no longer at home, but when I was, he was probably the most patient person I've ever come across, and if he weren't, I probably wouldn't be here today.
Well, it looks to me like you're very much, personality-wise, like your dad. Is that... Now, I'm assuming he's somebody you really looked up to.
Oh, yeah. He's been my hero since I can remember. There was a brief period in about 10th grade when Colin Powell was my hero. Still have a great deal of respect for him, but I flopped back to Dad in 12th grade.
Did you really? Son of a gun. Colin Powell and Dr. Ben Carson. I don't know. That'd be a tough one. Now, your uncle is also extremely achieved.
Yes.
As literally a rocket scientist.
Yes.
I want to hear what those conversations sound like at the Thanksgiving table. Between those two, it's got to be so far above anybody's understanding.
I wish I could say anything that those two say. Brain surgeons and rocket scientists are very intelligent people. I would be doing them injustice to repeat in my language what they actually say.
All right, our guest today is Ben Carson Jr. Is your middle name Solomon also?
It is.
Okay, and you go by BJ.
Yes.
Okay. Well, now, do you or not? You kind of paused it.
So I've had a couple names over the years. I kind of swapped it out for Ben for a little bit, and I go by Solomon. Actually, sometimes people call me Saul, and then BJ still. So it depends on what
would you
people
like me to call you?
BJ's fine. Ben Jr. Whatever works for you.
Ben Jr., Ben Carson Jr. is with us today. If you've got questions, send them to Bob on the webcast. Call him in, 244-0077. We're glad to have your voice in Mac's World as well as all of us. When we come back, well, let's talk about some of the issues on the campaign trail. Next, live in Mac's World.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
Rock and Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens. Rock on. This is Pat McManus for Rock and Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast 1.
All right, good afternoon. 21 minutes after 3 o'clock, 3:21. You know, I want to give you, I'm excited to be back at work. I'm excited to feel like I can be back at work every day this week. And so I want to give you some of the guests that we're going to have tomorrow. Now, do you remember? No, neither one. Oh, you were here, Frank. Do you remember when Tom and I were here and we were talking about, I think we were talking about Ferguson. Yeah. And a really good guy by the name of Stephen, who identified himself as an African American, called up and very, very nice and politely wanted to challenge us on some stuff. Right. And I told him I'd invite him into the show, so he'll be here tomorrow. Okay. All right. Then on Wednesday, a guy who wrote a book by the name of Chris Kramer, a local guy, is going to be in, and his book is just fascinating. His book is kind of about what's going on when you're not. It's a Christian book. Kind of what's going on when you're not looking. How that stuff that you're not paying attention to, why it's so important in life. Then I'm going to do what I swore I'd never do, but I'm going to do it anyway. I'm going to invite a liberal on. This is a guy that challenged me on Facebook like about a month ago, and I said, why don't you just come on the radio? And then Pat, our lady from Madison County, the gun lady, and who does the little video, she's going to join us then. And then Roger, who also called in one day and talked to us about PTSD. Yes. Is that right? Yes. Remember Roger called in? Yes. He's going to come in and kind of share with us about that. What would that be? Would that be an ailment? Would that be it's not a disease.
Well, it's post-traumatic stress disorder. When you experience a horrific event, it could lead to PTSD, which is something that stays with you for life.
And you really know about that stuff.
I do.
Yeah, that's part of your studies and your job and things like that. Would you say you have ever had that?
No, I never got to the point of PTSD.
It was close after Katrina, wasn't it?
I had the critical incident stress.
Okay.
And but recovered quickly.
Okay, good. Mm-hmm. Frank?
Well, I was just going to mention that to Ben that Bob was responded to several airplane crashes, and he was at 9/11. So
Bob is a part of the international DMORT
team.
And so what Bob will do when there is a massive loss of life, Bob and his team will go in to identify bodies. Oh, so he was at Katrina. He was at 9/11. We had a bad airplane crash here about
Sioux City
15, 20 years ago.
Sioux City, 26.
When there were just bodies all over the place. And so that's one of the things that God has called Bob to do, and he's incredible at it. And we've all heard the story. But now I've opened the can of beans, so I'm going to tell the story, the real quick story about the family 1 year later that came up to you at Flight 232.
Yeah, I went to the 1 year anniversary because I really needed to see people, and because we were working on their loved ones. And a dad had his son, and they came in to see me. Well, it wasn't just me. I just happened to be there. We got together, and he was pretty upset because he received the wife of a woman, the body of a woman that they said was his wife, but they told him not to look at her in the coffin because she was burned up pretty severely, and just remember her as she was. And he said to me, he says, I buried a body, but I don't believe it was my wife, and so I need answers. So we sat down, and I told him everything we did, the entire morgue process of identification, and I told him, I said, there's absolutely no question that was your wife that you received.
Can you imagine the gift?
Wow.
That would be for that family, that closure. Yeah. That's incredible.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, Bob could tell us stories all day long. He also had an incredible experience with the Holy Spirit at the cathedral that was just outside of 9/11. I mean, a moment, Bob, your words, not mine, that you knew he was there.
Oh, yes, on 9/11.
Well, our country was dedicated there, according to George Washington.
Yeah, and that cathedral.
Yeah, St. Paul's Chapel. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, so our guest today is B.J. Carson. Yes, that's Ben Jr., middle name Solomon. He is a father of a 4.5-year-old?
3.5.
3.5. And you are a business person. You buy and sell companies. You revive companies. You save companies. You create jobs. You do all kinds of things to help people.
Yep, we're finance guys.
Finance guys. All right. Yes, Frank.
So that leads me to this question. Does the individual create jobs or the government?
Does the individual create jobs or the government? That's an interesting question. I would say that it's the job of the government to protect the interests of the people at the end of the day and to serve the people. It's the job of the people at the end of the day to elect the correct members to government who best represent their interests. So I guess I'll leave that as the answer.
All
right. Growing up with your dad, share with me a memory in which you began to see the patriotism, because you knew him as a doctor, a brain surgeon, probably always talked about medicine. But and by the way, we didn't talk about this first, guys, so I'm just throwing this stuff at Ben right away. He just got here before the show started. The moment in which you saw your dad as an American, as a patriot, maybe he was upset, maybe he was very happy. Do you remember such a moment, maybe growing up, listening to a speech or something with him?
So it was, actually, we didn't really know him that much as a doctor. He was always dad to us, and he made it a very distinct separation between his work and his family life. So we always just knew him as dad. And we'd hang out with him at home and everything else. But he was also always a patriot. That's not anything that I think has ever changed. There's not necessarily a distinct moment because it was always who he was. He's always believed in this country because at the end of the day, it's what gave him the opportunity to come up from literally nothing. They were homeless before. They lived in dire poverty. And due to the American system, the American dream, he was able to accomplish everything that he has today. So he's always had a great deal of love and respect for this country and how it works. And I think if there were a particular incident where maybe we started to see more of the, I'll call it disappointment in the direction the country was going, that was really kind of around the time when a lot of the HMOs and otherwise were becoming very prevalent and making the job of doctors very difficult. And the way that he expressed it was there's a group of people, doctors, who are very accomplished, typically have a good amount of assets, and they typically don't have very much representation. So they're a very easy group to target from a government standpoint if you want to generate any kind of class warfare or otherwise, because they don't have representation in a political sense, but they certainly do have assets that you can go after.
Ben Carson Jr. is our guest today. You know his dad's running for president. He's been on this show before. He's a man that I very much believe in. I've told you before that I will not endorse a candidate because my endorsement means nothing to you, or it better not. It better mean nothing to you. You better know more about the candidate you're going to vote for than I do. Okay, that's a high information voter. It's not turning on the radio and saying, well, gee, I like Mac and he's got a great walk with Jesus, so whoever he votes for, I'll vote for. Don't do that, please. And either the day of the election or the day after, or the caucuses, I'll tell you who I voted for. I'll be honest with you. But don't hear me as endorsing anyone.
Well, we'd certainly love your vote.
I appreciate that, and you may very well have it, but that's another conversation. Now, my kids would tell you that they grew up that when the president was on TV or when there was a political convention, oh my gosh, I would take days off around political conventions. And so my kids realized that these people that ran our country were important to me. And they didn't always see me as a cheerleader. You know, sometimes I'm throwing spitballs at the TV. How did politics come in to you guys as you were growing up and in the family? You said he was dad and always a patriot. What were some of those moments that he may have taken you to or you watched on TV with him?
Well, we were always following Dad around. I mean, he was doing public speaking since as far back as I can remember. So we were always out there with him on the trail.
And was the public speaking politically usually?
No, it was usually his life story. He was out speaking to usually churches or schools or various associations, and they were interested in seeing an inspirational speaker. It didn't really get political until much later on. So we had already gone off to college or gone out to whatever businesses we were pursuing. And we never really got the whole political infusion as kids, even though DC was right down the road. It was never something that was really front and center.
I'm interested. I've always been kind of interested in that prayer breakfast that your dad attended, and Obama was in the room, and basically criticizing Obama's politics in essence to his face. Was there blowback from that? How did he get invited into that? And was there blowback after that we didn't vet this guy or something? I mean, what happened after that?
So that's an interesting question as well. So I was supposed to be at that prayer breakfast, and unfortunately I missed it due to travel. And there was a delayed flight, and I wasn't able to make it back in time. It's one of the big regrets of my life, because obviously that's when he started really becoming front and center on the political scene. But how he got invited, it was actually his second prayer breakfast that he was invited to. And not sure who made that decision. But I know that before the prayer breakfast, he actually
Jesus made that decision.
That works.
Jesus
made that decision. So he actually didn't know what he was going to say at the prayer breakfast.
Frank has that issue every single day from 3 to 5.
Well, I'm sure he does a great job at it as well. And it kind of came to him while he was the night before. He kind of figured out what he was going to talk about. Prayer breakfast happened, and afterwards they, of course, asked for an apology and went ahead and tried to say that he had done something wrong, and they were trying to get a copy of the script, but he doesn't ever have script. Dad doesn't speak off scripts. He always just speaks from the heart.
Yeah.
And there was some blowback, but Dad did his usual. If God is for me, who can be against me? Right. I'm not going to really play their games, and I'm certainly not going to apologize, because it was what I actually feel, and they asked me to come up there.
Now, for my listeners who don't know about this, can you just, in 60 seconds or less, what did your dad say at that prayer breakfast that was controversial?
He basically talked truth to power is what he really did. So he talked about a lot of the policies that had been put into place, like ACA and otherwise, that didn't really make a lot of sense for the American people. And he also talked about political correctness and how it's really one of the things that's destroying our society. And he didn't think that that was what Jesus really wanted for our country, or the founding fathers wanted for our country, what the Constitution talks about for our country. It didn't make any sense, the level that we had gotten to with political correctness and how that had become the defining nature of our discussions.
And was you said Obama was in the room?
Obama was, I'd say, probably 4 feet away from him at the time.
Oh my gosh! Okay,
I remember him blasting Obamacare, and that look on Obama's face was priceless.
Oh yes, it was. Yes,
now, when did your dad? How do I ask this question? When did you realize that he might really be running for president?
So I realized that even though he had talked to us about it when the announcement actually came out, because before that I was like, Dad's not going to do it. There's no way he'll actually go ahead and do it. And then we were at the announcement, and it was actually happening. I was like, I guess he's really doing it.
And I'm gonna make an assumption here. If I'm wrong, correct me. But I'm assuming there wasn't a moment that you didn't think he couldn't.
Oh, of course not.
You've always thought he could do it.
The interesting thing about growing up with someone like my dad as a father, he was always accomplishing something greater than whatever he had previously done. So it started with the conjoined twins, then it was hemispherectomies, then name all the various accomplishments he had over his life. So this was just another step, another accomplishment, another goal.
Yeah.
And it was for the right reasons at the end of the day. Dad's really focused on giving the power back to the people, and in becoming an instrument for God to actually bring this country back to where it needs to be.
All right, when we come back, I want you to tell me what some of those right reasons are, and I'd like to write them down if I could.
Certainly, happy to.
All right, Ben Carson Jr., Ben Solomon Carson, is in our studio, and we're very glad to have him, and we're thankful that you're here today, too, listening to Max World on 99.3.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast 1 Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Holmes.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed, fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're gonna make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
All right, 22 minutes before the top of the hour. Top of the hour, Salem Radio Network News. And then Joe. It's Monday. It's recovery day. Joe is a recovering alcoholic. He's a recovering drug addict. And it's only through Jesus has he found his way. Joe probably would be dead. And Joe's coming in to tell his story. He's a member of Celebrate Recovery. And we're so honored to have a guy who will come in and just sit in front of that microphone and tell us how Jesus has impacted his life, especially in the bottoms of addiction. And man, there's nothing lower. I've been divorced. I've been bankrupt. I've been fired. I've been hated. I've had kids that don't like me for a while. But I got to tell you, 2,038 days ago, I took my last drink of alcohol. And there was no lower day than the day when God whispered in my ear, I got you. I got you. Don't worry. I got you. And from everything forward, beyond that, has been just such a blessing. So we're going to hear Joe's story when we come back. BJ, Ben Carson Jr., he's in the studio with us. He's only going to be with us for a few more minutes. I want to ask you, you said that your dad was running for president for the right reasons. BJ, tell me what those reasons are. In your words, what are they?
Certainly. And I don't have the script from the campaign anyway.
I want the script.
It's got to be my
the stump
words.
speech.
So I think in my mind, and just to put it out there, before Dad ran, I was probably one of his biggest opponents actually running, because I didn't think that America was really ready for truth and for
opponent.
Yes.
So you didn't know if this was the right thing for Dad to do.
I actually didn't think it was, because I didn't think people were informed or educated enough to actually do anything except listen to mainstream media.
Yeah.
So
if you go on my Facebook page, I call them low information voters.
Yes, and they're
Forget
everywhere.
Liberal and progressive and Democrat. They hear one thing. Okay, that's it.
Yes,
that's it. Yeah.
So it's been encouraging to actually see that that's not 100% the case, that there are a lot of people out there who can listen and rationalize on their own. And I'll tell you, with what we've seen out there, first of all, Dad has my support 100%, of course, and I told him that even as I was telling him not to run. I said in the same breath, if you ever need anything or you decide to run, I'm behind you 100%. My dad is my hero, and I'll do whatever I can to help. But in terms of why he is, in my mind, going to be a phenomenal president, for one thing, he keeps Christ front and center, and it's always been what he's done through every portion of his life since he actually came to the Lord. It's always been about what God wanted him to do, and that's prevalent in literally everything about him. Because of that, because he is a godly man, you see that he is very interested in the truth, very interested in what the best outcome could be from the Lord's perspective. He prays daily, of course, and everything else that you would expect of a good God-fearing man. At the same time, he's also a very intelligent man who's had to deal with a lot of situations that were life and death, some very difficult decisions over time.
Yeah, the taking the twins apart.
Taking twins apart.
That must have been just, wow.
And many others. I mean, that was one that, kind of catapulted him into a little bit of the limelight, but at the same time, the 2 a.m. calls in the morning about a patient who, needed to do this or that. And one way they would not be around anymore. One way, it might be a different outcome. So he's become, I think, a very interesting type of leader because of what he's had to experience throughout the course of his life. And God put those experiences into his life for a reason.
And I would imagine, Ben, that you've also seen the quality of people that he surrounds himself with.
Yes.
And, quite frankly, and I don't want to get too political, but we don't see that with his current administration. We really see, are you familiar with a term called the Peter Principle? That everybody you hire will never be as good as you, so you'll always look the best. And you can imagine eventually the people that are around you are just yes people.
Yes.
And I just don't see your dad. I see your dad surrounding himself with incredible people who can do everything that he can't.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's always been something that he's done, too. That's not the first time ever that he's decided to do things like that. He took the Hopkins Pediatric Neurosurgery Division from basically nowhere to being number one in the world. And it wasn't by trying to steal the limelight himself and hire those people who would just be yes people. And he's, for some reason, been able to galvanize consensus within groups of people who are also experts in their field and be able to actually come up with solutions to very complicated problems.
Yeah, now, I don't want to pay anybody any big compliments because heads don't get out this door very often. But I've done that here. Ryan is an incredible producer. I could never do what he does. Bob's knowledge of a relationship with the Holy Spirit and of the world and the way it works is incredible. And yes, even Frank's knowledge of the Bible and understanding of God's word is far greater than what mine may ever be. So I see your dad as that same type of guy, surrounding himself with really intelligent people. All right, absolutely. Robert, you had a question?
Yeah, the question I had is a few weeks ago, your father was under a lot of attacks for things that were written in the book, and the media just went after him. I just wanted to know how you felt when you heard all of these things coming down against your dad, the person that you know very well.
Yep. So we kind of saw it coming. There was going to be some assault from somewhere once you're running for president or any other office. The good thing is, and we've seen this before from previous attacks, whenever somebody would get mad at Dad and want to take him down, they'd fabricate things at the end of the day. So when we see the media doing it, it's not the best thing in the world to see someone slandering your father out there, but the good thing about it all is they really can't find anything to go after, so they start making things up. And I just find it really interesting. I'll call Dad from time to time and be like, hey, Pops, what do you think about, this, that, or the other? And he'll be like, we knew it was coming, so, let the teams take care of it. But, obviously no one wants to hear slander. At the same time, it's good that there's really nothing out there. I figure, we had done a roast for him for his 60th birthday. and all these people would come to this venue in Baltimore, and everybody was going up there to say whatever they were for the roast. And everybody said the same thing. They were like, we know we're supposed to say something negative and roast Dad, but we don't have anything, so we're going to say positive things instead. And that went on for hours. So that was probably the most boring roast, I think, I've ever been to. But at the same time, it's good to know that there's not really anything out there. And now seeing that validated by the media, who really can't find anything, and now they're making stuff up, that's fantastic. It's good to know you have a good dad.
And I loved the way, I've been around your father, and he has that approach communication-wise, and you've copied that. Or you haven't copied it, you've inherited it. Very gentle. But even those few statements that he made, when the media tried to go after him, I saw a little bit of fire in him, and that made me feel good. Mm-hmm. That made me feel good that passion could come out when the most important thing was happening, and that was his integrity was being questioned.
Absolutely.
And I like that. I like that about him.
Well, I hope I don't upset your father too much, but you got your mother's looks.
Yep, I've heard that before.
But one of my big issues is religious freedom. Probably number one issue in my life. And I see it as a three-legged stool that in this country we have to have fiscal stability, social stability, and military to hold that all together. Is that the way you see it, that you kick a leg out of a three-legged stool, the other two is going to fall? We have to have that three-legged stool of fiscal, social, and military stability in this country?
I think that it's a good balance that you always need to have in pretty much anything if it's going to work. I mean, you take even the concept of the eagle. There's two wings to an eagle. There's a right wing and a left wing, and it can't fly with just one wing. You need both to balance it out. So anytime you're disrupting equality, you're going to be left with something that doesn't quite work right. Now, sometimes it's in the best interest of certain special interest groups to go ahead and disrupt those things. That's where I think you run into a lot of the problems that you see prevalent in today's society.
Sure.
BJ, we're out of time. I know you've got a lot of people to visit here in Iowa, a lot of people that care to love your dad. And I want to thank you for being here.
No, thank you.
Come anytime.
Actually, we'll take you up on that. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, come back anytime. You're always in a safe place. We have no desire to make trouble for anybody, even if, I was going to say if Hillary was in here. I'd cause problems for Hillary. But God bless you and your family and your dad,
Thank you.
and I just hope the best comes for all of you.
Well, thank you so much. Really love being here.
Look forward to having you back again. All right, BJ, that's Ben Carson Jr., has been our guest for this first period, and we've greatly appreciated his time and the gift of time that he gave us. Oh, quick, who's your dad's? Solomon.
Yes.
All right, so what about you?
Oh, man, I was supposed to have an answer for you on that.
You are.
I will be back on the show to give you that answer.
All right. We're coming back with some of today's headlines next, live here on The Truth.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
Rockton Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens, rock on! This is Pat McManus for Rockton Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this.
Okay, we're back. Boy, that's fun. That's fun. I hope you enjoyed the last 50 minutes here on the radio. It is, I love my job. Can I get serious with you for just a second, please? I love my job. And meeting with Craig Ellenson last week on Tuesday when we talked to the man whose son was drowned at the Lake of the Ozarks at the hands of what is being allegedly said as misconduct by the police, to have that man sitting here and to share this incredibly intimate story about losing his son, to sit here and talk to the son of the man running for president. I got to tell you, yeah, my first choice would be have Ben sitting here, but close second is a child. I've interviewed the children of people who are running for office, and number one, I always promise them that they're in a safe place. It's not my job to hit and run the son. The presidential candidate, maybe that's a different story. Maybe there's some tough questions that need to be answered, but the son doesn't deserve that. I want to know the father through the son. Now, did you hear what I just said? It's John 6:44. I want to know the father through the son. I know God, my Father in heaven, through his son, Jesus Christ. Today, we got to hear a little bit about Ben Carson Sr. through Ben Carson Jr. I hope you treasured this interview, and it'll be on my YouTube page, Mac McCoy, MacMcKoy.com, and it'll be on there probably by the end of today. And I hope you share it with as many people as possible. Okay, we did have a question, and some of you may know or may not know that Ben Carson is loyal, convicted, thank you, Seventh-day Adventist. And Frank understands Seventh-day Adventist. He's been one all his life. So don't answer this, Frank, as somebody who goes to the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Answer this question, please, as somebody who's very knowledgeable of it. Because it came across on chat, and we were out of time. But, Bob, what's the question on chat?
Yeah, the question is, please ask Ben how he thinks that our society is prepared for a Sabbath-keeping Seventh-day Adventist POTUS, President of the United States.
Well, I think we need the conversation. If nothing else, the conversation will be brought up. Our conviction is that Christ is going to reinstitute the Sabbath day before his coming, because the law was given, the Sabbath was given at creation. It was reminded of at Sinai, actually a little before Sinai, with the manna falling, that they weren't to pick up, they were to pick up a double portion of manna on Friday. And Isaiah 66:22 through 23 says that the Sabbath will be kept in heaven and the new earth. So why the Sabbath isn't being kept right now, I won't go in. It gets pretty lengthy, and I wouldn't go into that right now. But I think Ben Carson will at least create a conversation in this country. Hey, what does it mean? Is it that important? And I think that conversation needs to be had, because the coming of Christ is close. And I think the Sabbath before God takes his children to heaven, I believe there's going to be two brides waiting for Christ's return. There's going to be spiritual Israel.
Hey, hold on. I'm going to stop you because you're not answering the question. You're just preaching. I'm sorry. I love you, Frank. But I want you to answer the question. What's going to be different? Because you got to remember, 50 years ago, everybody wondered if John F. Kennedy was president, and he's Catholic, our first Catholic president, how would that change? The answer is it won't change, right?
Ben Carson will keep the Constitution. People will have their religious freedom under Ben Carson.
Okay, and so he's not going to make everybody do something different from sundown to sundown or anything like that?
No, but I believe the national conversation will happen because people will inquire about his faith, and they'll want to know, what's the difference between Saturday and Sunday? Why not keep both days? Why keep one day? And that conversation will happen. But Ben Carson will be loyal to the Constitution and keep the laws of the United States.
Okay, because, this was the very, very... The reason we have Barack Obama in the hospital, the reason we have Barack Obama in the White House is because nobody could get past Mitt Romney being a Mormon.
Right.
And part of that I understand, Now, don't hit me, anybody, but I think Mormonism and Christianity are oxymorons. I don't think they fit together. Now, that's a long conversation, and I don't mean to offend anybody. Whenever I've spoken to an ex-Mormon or someone who used to be a Mormon or understood the Mormon church, they agree with the essential that Jesus is not the end of all ends. Jesus is not the big thing in Mormonism. Mormons are. All right. So I want to make sure that as we carry through these caucuses, that some bad word coming out of Mac's mouth, beep, doesn't throw out all this low information garbage and make us think that it's all going to be weird on Saturdays in the White House.
Well, understand that Ben Carson is a devout Christian who believes in the Trinity, God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit. He believes in the birth, the death, the ascension, and life of Jesus Christ, and that he believes in salvation by grace, and that's basically what most fundamental Protestant churches believe. So definitely in the mainstream, other than keeping the seventh-day Sabbath.
All right, but we're not going to see a president who doesn't do anything on Saturdays.
Well, he will have to, because he will be in charge of that football, so to speak, that he will be basically working 7 days a week in some sense.
Well, and you are a good example of that, because when we've had an opportunity, the first one was to meet Ben Carson months and months ago. We've had a couple of things that have come up from the radio, and you have not thought twice, and you have not thought yourself unloyal to your Savior because you did something on the Sabbath.
No, if you can get your goat out of the hole on the Sabbath day, and if I'm talking about the Lord on the Sabbath day, there's no issue.
All right, good. All right, guys, wasn't that fun?
Yeah,
wasn't that
absolutely
fun? I would take a child of a presidential candidate over a spokesperson of a presidential candidate any day of the week. Any day of the week. All right, we are going to take a break. It is just being released right now that Iran has tested another mid-range ballistic missile. And that is an absolute breach of the UN resolutions. And it is in breach of the agreement that John Kerry has negotiated out with Iran, that the president seems to want to just forget about and say, no, we want to be friends with Iran.
You mean they're breaking the rules already?
Yeah, and they haven't even had an agreement yet. All right, glad to be back with you on this Monday. We're going to break. We've got some news for you. I hope you pay attention to the news. I hope you listen to it. It comes from Salem. Salem Radio Network News. Salem is a Christian organization, so you're going to get the real news, and you're going to get what we call around here the truth, the unnegotiable truth. And when we come back, we're going to introduce you to Joe, somebody whose life has been saved by that relationship with Jesus. We're coming back live here on The Truth, 99.3 live in Mac's World, and we're powered by webcast1live.com.